If you say you're a value investor, you're using one word too many.
Right.
You're an investor. Growth is just attached to the hip of value.
It's a component of what you're prepared to pay.
Yeah, so we're investors. All we're trying to do is check that the cash is there, how much cash, and compare that cash to what we're being asked to pay today. So the definition of investing is laying out money today to receive more money tomorrow. It's as simple as that.
Brought to you by Progressive Equity.
In this episode, I'm joined by someone who I reckon is the best performing smaller companies fund manager you've never heard of. I first met Geoff Oldfield in the 1990s when he was working as the co-manager of the Barings Asset Management European Select Fund. He and his partner, Gerhard Schoening, were making a name for themselves in the sector. And in 1998, they left to set up Ennismore Fund Management with some very firm ideas about the type of investment firm they wanted to run. The main pillars were performance over asset gathering, investment decisions taken by PMs, not a committee, clawback of performance fees to reward individual contribution, and a firm owned internally by its portfolio managers. Ennismore's first fund was launched in January 1999. It has been closed to new investors for most of its life, and a significant proportion of the fund is owned by its portfolio managers, including Geoff. I was fortunate enough to invest in the Ennismore Smaller Companies Fund on its launch. Over the subsequent nearly 25 years, it has delivered a 17-fold increase in value with a focused absolute return strategy in European-listed smaller companies. This is an average annual return of some 12%. And remarkably, over the period, the fund has only had 3 down years, 2008, 2009 and 2020, which together represented an aggregate negative 12% return, a track record fully demonstrating the advantages of an absolute return approach. Geoff is not a public figure, and I have spoken to him about doing this podcast since he returned to frontline fund management a few years ago. After a 10-year break, Geoff came back into portfolio management in an effort to help turn around the Ennismore Global Fund. This 2016 fund had scored an own goal, as Geoff puts it, while running short positions in the meme stock-obsessed Nasdaq market of 2020. Geoff is the epitome of the humble investor, being respectful of Mr. Market and also knowing when to take advantage of his emotionally charged moments of misvaluation. He talks about mistakes he made in the GFC and how providing liquidity to investors is a good discipline, despite the fact they invest in an illiquid asset class. He also describes how he defines quality companies and how they should be valued, but he also talks about how he always looks for a margin of safety and what he understands as risk. Critically, he discusses what makes smaller companies such a rich seam of opportunity for value investors, a strategy he has successfully pursued in a changing market for more than a quarter of a century. I must remind you that nothing you hear today is investment advice. The views expressed are personal to the contributors and do not represent the views of Progressive Equity or Ennismore Fund Management. I hope you find it enjoyable and educational. As always, when I chat with Geoff, I learned a lot. Please enjoy my conversation with the maverick investor, Geoff Oldfield.